Today's video is brought to you by Skillshare. Speaking of, when I was a child, my #1 skill in life was falling off of things, injuring myself, and crying. Now, as a grown man, that is still my #1 skill, but teaching intermediate guitar is a close second. So we're going to talk more about Skillshare in a second. Let's talk about leveling up your guitar intermediate skills. We're doing this in the people's key of G. The whole thing behind this is we're going to use 3 chords, G major, E minor, and B minor, in different ways all around the neck that I think might be enlightening because it was enlightening when I first discovered this. So we don't have to use bar chords for this. I'll do it in a couple different examples, but I want to start off using a G major bar chord in this position right here. Right? So again, I've got the 3rd fret. You can bar it officially where you just hold down the entire 3rd fret and then your ring finger and your pinky grab the 5th fret on the A string and the D string, and your middle finger grabs the 4th fret on the G string, or you can just grab the middle 4. Again, there's a lot of different ways to do it. I want to really emphasize that there's no one way to play really any chord, and even though it may seem like a lot of guitar players are using the same form, there's so much play within it that you don't know until you kind of get into the weeds. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to play these notes to make up a G major chord, G, B, and D, in an arpeggio in the middle of the neck, okay? And that's going to lead us into everything else. So what we're going to do is we're going to gather all our Skillshare skills. Affiliate link pitch is coming. Click the description to find out more about that. We're going to do this. Your pinky now is going to grab that 5th fret, the G, the octave G. Remember, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 notes away in the major scale is your octave. And then now we're going to go 2 whole steps, so G to B, and that lines up your pointer finger with the 7th fret on the G string, which is a D. G, B, D. Same as if you're going to play an open G, B, D open chord. In fact, you can do the same thing with this open chord here. And then kind of run into it. But I think it's a more natural progression that I want you to work on coming from this bar chord, because it's applicable in any chord, right? If we want to do an A, we do the exact same thing. But what I'm doing essentially is I'm taking the octave that my pinky's grabbing, and I'm getting us into another playing position. All right, so we're skipping the line. We're falling off a slide. I really did find, one of my first memories as a child was falling off the top of a slide. I think I was in like 1st grade, impressing my friends by how fast I could go down the slide. But instead of even hitting the slide, I somehow fell off the entire thing. Kids are stupid. Whatever. Traumatic injury that I'll never forget. So we fall off the slide, and then we kind of go into this D-shaped G major chord. So this is another way to maybe connect the dots between different chord shapes you already know and where they exist on the fretboard, and a way to kind of connect them. All right? Now the cool thing about this is you can visually take a shape that you're very familiar with, and you can just think of rooting it now with your ring finger on the 8th fret of the B string, okay? So G major, G major. And then you can use the same one, maybe go across the octave. So we're learning a lot of different things, but remember right now, we're focusing on this right here. And now I want you to kind of think of this and see how this shape is really kind of hidden within an E minor, or specifically an E minor 7 chord. Okay, so one thing that really helped me understand the guitar fretboard, music in general, was kind of seeing shapes and full chords nested within other chords. What I mean by that, we're using the chords G major, E minor, and B minor today. But if you start combining those chords with each other, like for instance, my favorite chord of all time is turning everything into a major 7 chord. Really, a G major chord plus a B minor chord combines to make a G major 7 chord. This is a great example of an E minor chord and a G major chord combined to make E minor 7. Right? See, and that's a good example of that, because we just played the G major here. We can use that same shape rooted on the A string for the E minor, right? G major. major, anytime you use this shape, it go down a string is a minor chord, E minor. And then again, look, there's that right there. So now if I have E minor 7, it's 7A, 9D, 7, 8, 7, G, right? Okay, so now we can connect the same chord using this. In fact, this move right here might be familiar if you've ever played Jimi Hendrix, because he's really just sliding into that, right? So aside from just being able to, call out the names of these and talk about music theory in like a very practical musical way, this is also a great riff building technique. Speaking of techniques and skills, let's talk a little bit about the sponsor of today's video, Skillshare. Skillshare is the largest online learning community for creatives with thousands of classes led by industry experts across many categories. It can help you take your skills to the next level. So I've used Skillshare for a long time. You may have seen me do other videos with them in the past, but they've actually updated the website in a really, really cool way, all right? So the first 500 people to click the link in the description actually get it for a month free. So definitely make sure to do that. And the cool thing is you don't even have to use it for just musical stuff. In fact, that was the thing that I was blown away with, kind of like learning the entire interface and kind of diving into it again, is that they have so many more courses now that are in select themes. So you can even be like, all right, instead of wanting to take one course, be like, oh, I've always wanted to get better just at insert basically anything, and now they have curated kind of playlists of their courses that can help you out. There's such a huge variety of categories that you could take, stuff like photography, graphic design, music, cooking, business marketing, and more. One thing that I really wanted to do was just kind of up my general social media game, and again, like I'm, aside from being a professional musician, I'm almost more of a professional content creator at this point. So they had a really cool course that I was taking about just using Canva, which is a program that I really have heard a lot about, but have kind of avoided and have just been kind of doing things in software programs that I just understood better, which was way less efficient. So I've actually been spending my time learning Canva really well with this. So it just goes to show that, the whole site is just dedicated to the pursuit of learning, which is something I totally vibe and resonate with, and I try to really communicate and display in my videos. This one specifically is one of the marketing content creation based ones that I really liked, and I don't know, I just learned a lot from this, and I think it's pretty cool. But other than that, just there's a bunch of guitar and music stuff also, right? So another thing I was taking was a bluegrass course that I was taking, because that's an area of playing that I really have not spent a lot of time in, so it's cool just to kind of get a primer on that and all the rundown. But again, I'm really, really impressed by the amount of creative commerce courses that they have now, because it's something that a lot of people are interested in. So if that's something that you're interested in, check it out. I mean, it's free for 30 days. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised by the breadth of courses that you have, and it gives them feedback that you're watching my videos and it's valuable to them, and they might want to keep working with me, which really helps me out. So definitely check out Skillshare and click that link, because again, the first 500 people who click it get that free month. So now that we've talked about maybe connecting these two spots, let's talk about some other things that we could do with them, right? So we've really just gone G major to E minor or E minor 7. Now, underrated chord in chord progressions is the 3 chord, all right? So this is gonna be B minor in the key of G, G, A, B, right? So there's only 7 notes in a key, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, in the octave. So far we've gone G to E minor, G, A, B, C, D, E. We've gone 1 to 6, G, A, B, 3. 1, 6, 3. Open would be 1, 6, 3. Okay, both of those are gonna come in handy. But the cool thing about any key and any, aside from these shapes that you already know, as far as hand shapes, positional shapes are also things you could use because you've already learned them, right? So B minor pentatonic. Now this is the 3rd degree of G, remember G, A, B. So we can't play the whole minor scale on B, right? That's the natural minor for a different key, okay? The key of D. But what you can do is you can always play minor pentatonic over any time you see a minor chord. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna start doing some cool stuff in the B minor pentatonic position. 7-10, 7-9, 7-9, 7-9, 7-10, 7-10. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna do maybe double stops to get out of this position and bring us back to G. All right, now again, a double stop is when you just play two notes at the same time. Pentatonic scale is perfect for that. In fact, if we just kind of take a second to look at this shape again, remember 7-10, 7-9, 7-9, 7-9. The beautiful thing about the A, D, and G strings in any pentatonic minor position is they're just the same, they're symmetrical. So you can double stop just like that. You do two fingers like this. That's a perfect way to maybe get out of this E minor back to G. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna start with G major here. Okay, so that was, again, even without any rhythmic component, just kind of going from the chord, then outlining it with the little Purple Haze intro riff, which isn't Purple Haze at all. This is a totally organic way to come across a major triad into the E minor, hammer on, right? I'm just barring kind of 7, bringing my middle finger and my ring finger down on 8B and 9D respectively. And then I'm gonna open that up to what I'm thinking of playing over a B minor, right? Where I can just bar the 7th fret, 7, 9, 9, 7, 7, 7. But then I can do those saucy double stops that everybody loves. G. And especially when you kind of go these little slides, forward and backward, forward and backward, you get back to it, right? And like I said before, we don't even have to use bar chords. We could use pieces of these all the time. Like for instance, when I'm just taking these little 2-note double stops, I don't have to go all the way back to this bar chord. I could just, right? And you can hear the finality, you can hear the resolution right there. Even though I'm only playing 2 notes of that G major chord. I'm playing again the root note and the 5th below, a G and a D. And that's enough to give you a resolution. So especially on electric guitar, I think stuff like this works really, really well because we have these little double stops that we can kind of start experimenting with, right? And it's easy to do because you can visualize the shape in your mind's eye, right? Like let's just break a G major into as many double stops as we can, right? Let's play 2 notes at a time on each of the courses of strings. So the first one that we would have from this shape, again, I'll start with the shape and then I'll abandon it and just make the double stop from the chord. All right, again, there's G and D. A power chord, you could see that as a double stop, right? The next one, A and D, is the one we just did, right? With your ring finger and your pinky together. Another nice thing about double stops is I've found it easier to maybe add like a much more controlled vibrato that kind of sounds pleasant. If you do that with the whole chord, I think it's a little heavy-handed, a little much maybe. Then we can go to the D and the G string, which again is really just a G and its major third. And the cool thing is with this kind of thing, even though we're thinking of it from this shape, where it would be my pinky and my middle finger, maybe that's not a shape that I use that much. Maybe I'm way more comfortable with my middle finger and my pointer finger because we were all bred on that G major right there. I can go to the G and the B string, 4 and 3. Or I can go to 3 and 3. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Those are 5 different ways to play what we're trying to kind of think of as our main major chord. And that all came from other ways of doing it. this one right here. What's that? That's a little double stop from my D-shaped G major chord. Right now I'm kind of breaking these into little courses all over the neck, right? In fact, let's go above and beyond and do that same chord shape, but with maybe a different position. I think of this as like the C/G shape all the way down here, which is what we just kind of came from. So if we were to play these same notes, but starting in this position, we end up with 10, 10, 9, 7, 8, 7, right? So again, on the bottom here, it's that, and on the top here, it's that D shape. But then if we break them into courses, like I said, it's 10 and 10, 10 and 9, 9 and 7, 7 and 8, 8 and 7. And that's, I think that's like really cool because like, oh, maybe I didn't really think that I could kind of play a G major like that. And now, when I combine that musically in a chord progression, which is G major, E minor, B minor, now I start having these really cool things where maybe I can, you know, doing these little double stops and kind of just finding the things that I like, and then inflecting, maybe add a little hammer on. From there, I also know that I can go here. And I'm just dancing around these shapes that really came from combining other easier shapes that I already know how to do. And that is how you increase your skills, right? Just 3 different chords. And you can jump into these from any chord, right? We can start with open. E minor. B minor. Again, there's like a million different things you can do, but once you start seeing it, everything gets so much easier. But you have to see it. That's the thing. You can't, if you're just memorizing arpeggios, right? It's like, that's great, but you want to be able to see these little pieces of shapes that are nested within each other. And I think that's kind of like a huge part of being an intermediate or advanced player, is being able to kind of see things in multiple different ways to kind of come at it however you want. Which is why a service like Skillshare is so valuable. What a segue! Because you have so many different courses you could take with all sorts of expert instructors. Because, like I said, the instructor is such a big part of how I learn anyway. You know, like so many different instructors can relay essentially the same information, but he or she can do it in a different way that you might resonate with. That's why it's really cool to have one of these like big kind of online platforms that have like a bunch of different perspectives that you can kind of sift through and just clicking through it until you find one that resonates with you. Like I said, anything from like cooking, gardening. Maybe I'll pitch them a course on how to fall off of things and injure yourself and cry. That's coming soon. I'm pretty sure that's the one course that I wasn't able to find, but luckily for all of us, I can totally help them out there. So, like I said, thank you again to Skillshare for sponsoring. Click that link if you want to try it for a month. Only works for the first 500 people. And if you have any questions or comments, send me in the comment section or the website, and I'll talk to you soon.